Hey folks, Dr. Joe here. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I'm certainly having a wonderful day, as almost always. Today, a little more serious show. In light of all the suicides we've heard about lately, and of course I've been in practice for 33 years, I've seen this a lot, we're going to talk about depression. We're going to talk about what causes it, why different people get it. Different people have different brain makeup, so of course our brains work differently. But things that you can do on a daily basis to help yourself. And it's not hard, it's easy, because depression is now the number one cause of illness and disability worldwide. So here we have the number one cause of illness and disability worldwide. Not many people are talking about it. They talk about how tragic it is, but no one talks about getting to the cause of the problem. So we're going to talk about how the brain reacts when someone is depressed, and we all get depressed. And in fact, sometimes it's healthy to experience depression because it means you're normal, you have a heart, you have a soul. But what happens when it goes awry? What happens when it gets out of control? So according to the World Health Organization, depression is the leading cause of ill health and disability worldwide. It's affecting an estimated 322 million people worldwide, including more than 16 million Americans. Globally, rates of depression increased by 18% over the past several years. So we're seeing a lot more of it. And I see this a lot with my patients too. Why do we see a lot more of certain things? And after 33 years in practice, I see a lot more romantic problems. We've done several shows on that already, on romantic function. Well, why is it that younger men and women are having more and more problems when it comes to the romance department? Well, it could be pinched nerves. It could be bad diet. It could be neurotransmitters in the brain. It could be clogged arteries. Similar problems occur with depression. So the neat part is we have a list of things that we can go through that you can act as a checkoff list. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Go through the checkoff list and say, okay, I have this, I can do this, I can do this. And in most cases, you'll be amazed what happens. You'll say, wow, and you'll say what most people say, why didn't somebody tell me this sooner? Financial impact, how about that? World Health Organization estimates global economic loss by households, employers, and governments is at least $1 trillion annually. So we have the number one cause of illness and disability in the world, $1 trillion a year being spent on this, and I haven't heard anybody do what we're going to do today. Talk about what you can do to actually work on it. Yeah, talk to a friend, go to a professional. Absolutely, positively, I agree with that. But what action steps can you take? Because depression usually doesn't hit you one day. It's usually something that builds up over time. Strongly linked to increased risk of substance abuse, diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and suicide. According to the World Health Organization, the majority of people with depression suffer in silence and they don't get adequate care. High-income countries, such as the U.S., estimated 50% of depressed individuals do not get treatment. In low-income countries, it's 80 to 90% don't get treatment. So as a chiropractor, my job, I'm board certified in chiropractic, orthopedics, pain management, double board certified in nutrition, BS in nutrition, retired dietitian, award-winning author. This show that you're hearing right now is the number one health and wellness radio broadcast around the world, as far as we know. So there's no reason why this message shouldn't be getting out. If you have the internet, you can get this show. But my goal, my team of doctors' goals, actually, most patients see my other doctors, the goal is to get you well and keep you well. Steps that you can do to get well. Now, as a chiropractor, of course, most people come to us with neck pain, back pain. I shouldn't say most. About 50% of our patients, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, car accidents, sports injuries. But the others come into us with other issues, diabetes, heart disease. Walking in the hall today, one of my colleagues, another on-air host from another radio station, stops me and says, hey, I was listening to your show the other day, and you were talking about the acid reflux in the stomach, and it pushes up against the diaphragm. I have that. And I said, well, my show today is going to be about depression and how it's linked to digestive issues and probiotics and the bacteria in your colon. He goes, wow, yeah, sometimes I do feel like it could be affecting my emotions. I said, well, it does. Can I come see you? Absolutely. And so it's going to come see us. 6 million seniors in the U.S. struggle with depression, yet only 10% receive treatment. This is a big issue because we have a lot of patients come to our offices and they're very lonely. Loneliness is a big thing. I did a show on that a couple of weeks ago. It's on my website, drjoe.com, or on the podcast, For the Health of It. If you have a podcast service, you can go to For the Health of It and look up our podcast as well. And we talked about loneliness and how serious a condition that is. And I was amazed how many people, including patients, came up to me and friends and said, Can we talk about that loneliness thing? I've never had anyone talk about that as an actual cause of disease. And I was fascinated. And we talk about a lot of things, but that seemed to really strike a chord with a lot of people. And it's surprising. People you wouldn't think are lonely. People you think they're very friendly and gregarious and they have jobs and they go to work, suffer from loneliness. World Health Organization. For someone living with depression, talking to a person they trust is always the first step to treatment and recovery. But unfortunately, the importance of such strategies, such as good gut bacteria, optimizing the vitamin D in your body, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and maintenance, that's going to have such a big role in maintaining your emotional stability, and that's often ignored. So many times we go right to the drugs. I'm not against drugs. I'm not against surgery. I'm against unnecessary use of drugs and surgery. So many times we say, well, I got to go take my medication. Well, what if you're low in vitamin D? Studies have shown that people that are low in vitamin D are more likely to suffer from depression. We have a supplement called Dr. Joe's Vitamin D. It's got to be D3, by the way, folks, not D2. D2 is the synthetic version of D3 and is hundreds of times less effective. Many times, that's what people are prescribed when they have their blood work done. And as an expert in nutrition, I'm not going to tell you not to take what your doctor prescribes, but I would say you're better off taking the D3. And that's why we have Dr. Joe's D3. It's on the website, drjoe.com. I take about 5,000 units a day. Now, in the summer, when I'm out in the sun, I don't take any. But if I know I'm going to be out in the sun every couple of days, maybe 20, 25 minutes a day, go for a swim or something, I'm usually pretty good on that. However, if you're not out in the sun, if you have an inside job, start taking the vitamin D. And also, by the way, folks, you can get your blood tested for it. So next time you go to your doctor, make sure you get your vitamin D levels tested. Very important. Folks, got to go to break. I'm going to open up the phone lines for any health questions. 844-44-Dr. Joe, 844-44-DRJOE. My website with podcasts and supplements and books. If you want to send me a question through the website, drjoe.com, or the number here at the studio, 844-44-Dr. Joe. Hey, tell your friends about the show. I'll be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. So glad you're there enjoying our show today. And it's a pretty serious topic today. We're talking about depression, what causes it, and things that you can do about it. Because so many times patients come into our offices and they'll say, well, Dr. Joe, I have depression, I have anxiety, neck pain, back pain, shoulder, whatever it is they come to us for. And I say, what are you doing about it? And I say, I'm taking medications, and many times I'll hear the medications only work sometimes. They're not working as well as they used to. And of course, I hear all the time, I want to get off my medication. I don't think I've ever had a patient in all the years we've been in practice, my doctors and I combined, that said, I want to stay on these medications. You know, what can I do to get off? We're not your primary doctors. We're not going to tell you to come off your medications, but we can tell you what to do to get well so that hopefully you don't need them. So when it comes to depression, you got to look at your vitamin D levels, something that's so often overlooked. We're going to talk about your gut health in a second, too, and how that all ties together. And that's what I find is the number one connection between the causes of depression and is the gut. It's the bacteria in your colon. It's the stomach pushed up against the diaphragm. Are you having normal bowel function? So we're going to talk about that, too. Exercise is important. Usually works pretty well. And again, you know, folks, you don't have to go out and work out for 2 hours and 3 hours and hit the gym, and go for a walk. Get outside. Get the body in motion. Go for a swim. Some people say, my back hurts, my neck hurts, I can't work out. Well, maybe go in the water and swim. Now, if you're going to be in a pool, and I was the other day, as a matter of fact, I want you to shower right afterwards, because chlorine can get on your skin and get absorbed into your body. And chlorine is what we call a haloid. The haloids are bromine, chlorine, fluorine, and iodine. And you need iodine in your body, and you need it in your thyroid specifically, but the whole body needs iodine one way or another. And what happens is if you're getting a lot of chlorine, fluorine, and bromine in your body, you're blocking up the iodine receptor sites in your thyroid gland, and you can't utilize iodine. Second thing is most people don't have enough iodine, because most of us in the United States especially don't eat anything with iodine in it except iodized salt. So it becomes a big issue. That's why I have something called Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. And if you've never heard me talk about them, well, you will, because they're absolutely positively my favorite supplements in the world. And I think everybody, almost everybody, should be on Super Greens and Essential Source at least once a day. I have them sitting in front of me right now in the studio. And they're 2 powders. I take a scoop of each. I shake it up with some coconut milk, almond milk. I like the regular. You can do it with the unsweetened, but I like the regular. It makes it a little sweeter. And it tastes great. And it's amazing when you start taking it. And we're going to talk about that probably quite a bit today as we're talking about depression, to get the minimum amount of nutrients into your body to make your body work. So that's something you should take. And also we put sea vegetables in there to make sure you're getting your iodine, because that's the best source of iodine. So another good reason you should be taking Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. In fact, I've done hundreds, thousands, well, actually thousands of radio shows and lectures. I don't think I've ever found anything that didn't respond well to taking Super Greens and Essential Source. Now, if you're on blood thinners, you always want to talk to your doctor about that and monitor your blood so you can monitor your medication. But what a lot of people report is when they change their diet and they start taking supplements, they don't need the medication anymore. No supplements. More information on the website, drjoe.com, or you could just go to Amazon as well. We have an Amazon page there as well. If you're feeling desperate, if you're having thoughts of suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. This is important. 1-800-273-TALK, or call 911. Go to your nearest hospital emergency room. Don't take it lightly. If you're thinking thoughts of suicide more than just a fleeting thought, this is something you need professional help with. And we'll work with you. We'd love to work with you, but I do recommend professional counseling as well for this. Suicide rates are at a 30-year high. They've increased steadily since 2000, primarily in more rural areas. The trend is blamed on social isolation, economic pressures, opioid addiction, and limited access to mental health care. I'm going to add something to that, and I believe it has a lot to do with your diet and your physical health. Now, as a chiropractor, I want to get your nervous system working properly, I want to get your digestive system working properly, and I want to make sure you're taking good foods into your body. I'm going to talk about the digestive system a lot, so make sure you stick with this show. I got a lot to cover today. So we're going to talk a lot about the digestive system and how it's tied into anxiety, depression, bipolar, ADD, ADHD. We're going to cover all that as well. Suicide among men is 4 times higher than women. Highest rates among 35 to 65-year-olds, and then those over 75. So people get desperate. They feel, and this is a big one too, as a pain management expert, I'm board certified in pain management. Patients come in and say, Doc, if you can't help me, I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. And I usually tell them, well, this is usually most patients' last stop. We usually get good results with them. But if you've been in irretractable pain, and I have been, you really consider some strange thoughts, because you got to get out of this pain. And then the opioids are being used because they're very popular. I mean, if you're trying to pass a kidney stone, opioids work the best. But different people are more susceptible to being addicted to opioids than others. And when you're addicted to opioids, your body stops producing its own anti-pain chemicals, like GABA is a neurotransmitter in your brain that helps suppress pain. And when you shut down or slow down your production of these chemicals, you need more and more external sources like opioids. And then what happens is your body, if you can't get the opioids, because of course the doctors now in hospitals are getting real strict on how many they're going to give you, you start getting desperate and you start doing crazy things and thinking. And when I say crazy, I don't mean in a bad way. It's what you're thinking. It's a real thought. So if we can get you out of pain, it's pretty exciting. And that's what my doctors are really, really good at, is getting people out of pain. Suicide risen among teens. Antidepressants may play a big role in this. Antidepressants are known to increase the risk of suicide in children, teens, and young adults. But despite such warnings, they're still prescribed to young people. And that concerns me. So how do we get over the depression so that we don't have to put you on the meds? And if we do put you on the meds, what can we do, a step-by-step action to get you off the meds? And that's what we're going to talk about. On a side note, veterans, why do they commit so much suicide so often? Veterans have a surprisingly high suicide rate. According to a survey from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 1 in 6 American veterans have contemplated suicide. Veterans suffer from feelings of hopelessness, depression, and other psychiatric disorders 2 to 3 times more often than the general public. So I've never been to war. I can't imagine what it's like. I have friends that have been there, and when they tell stories, it's devastating. So in cases like this, it's really important that we don't just treat the symptoms of depression, but we also try to get to the cause of depression. And by the way, being a pet owner helps a lot with depression in a lot of cases, so maybe something you can help too. So I'm going to talk about some non-drug solutions for depression, because that's kind of why you're listening to the show, right? You all know it's there. We know it's a big issue. What do we do about it? Got a break coming up real soon, so I'm going to get into this, and then right after the break, we're going to hit it hard and heavy there. And if you have healthcare questions, the number here at the studio, 844-44-Dr. Joe, 844-44-DRJOE. Oh, by the way, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. If you go to my website, sign up for my newsletter. We send out a lot of good information on the newsletter, and we never give out your email address, so don't worry about it. It's always going to be our secret. And you need to know this, but follow Facebook and Instagram. We also post a lot of things, too. And we want to stay in touch with you. We want to be your doctors, by the way. We have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge in the Atlanta area. So if you want to make an appointment, you could always go to the website, drjoe.com, or call 844-44-Dr. Joe. That number, when I have it forward from my offices when I'm on the air, so you can always reach us here. So I'm going to have to go to a break, but the website's a good place. We have a lot of archive radio shows there. Our podcasts are there, well over 1,000 hours. If you have a podcast service, you can go to For the Health of It, and that's our podcast. Hey, folks, tell your friends about the show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. So glad you're spending a little time with me today. I'm talking today a real serious topic about depression, and it's a very serious issue in our country and all around the world. It's the number one cause of illness and disability worldwide, and it's real common. And you'd be surprised how many people, like Anthony Bourdain, people said that he was the nicest guy in the world, and everyone that I knew who knew him liked him, and he was funny, and he was friendly, and he was charming. And then few people came out and said he was in a dark place and then committed suicide. And so depression, you sometimes don't know it's there. Sometimes you look at people and go, that's the last person I would have suspected. But start noticing these things about your friends, your family, your loved ones, especially seniors. Are they getting lonely? Are they talking strange things? Are they saying, gosh, why am I even here anymore? Start taking note. And when that occurs, step in. Hey, listen, let's go out. Let's go do something. And get them to open up if you can. If nothing else, just being there. My mother gave great advice. I remember talking to her many times in my life. And you just have to be. Just be. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to run around and go to parties and hang out. Just be. And it was really good advice my mother gave me. And sometimes you just being there is going to be all that it takes to help somebody. So let's talk about some non-drug solutions for depression. Once again, if you're on medication, don't come off your medication because you listen to this show. But if we can get you healthy, hopefully you can then slowly come off the medication. Always check with the person who prescribed your medication, on any medication, to see if it's safe to start coming off them. Because many times once you're on them, the biochemistry and the neurophysiology in your body changes. And you don't want to just come off it cold turkey. It can cause some real serious problems. So we got to address nutrition. It's probably the best place to start if you're having depression, if you know someone having depression. Foods have an immense impact on your brain. And if you're eating the proper foods, a lot of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, it's going to help your mental and your physical health. And I talk about this all the time with my friends that have made the transition and my patients to eating better. And when they start making a transition, sometimes a little challenging, but once they do, and they come, if they ever cheat, well, gosh, I had a ham sandwich the other day, or I had a big bowl of ice cream, or I had whatever. They'll always say the same thing. I had no idea how bad I felt all the time until I felt good. And I'm never going to do that again. No friend of mine went out the other night with a bunch of her coworkers, and she had a drink. And she said, I just didn't feel good. I just didn't feel like I was on my game. And she hadn't drank in quite a while. And she said, I don't really need to drink anymore. I'm good. And sometimes you need to do that. Let me try it one more time. You're right. I don't really need this. And that's a lot of times when it comes to alcohol, that's what happens. People think they have to drink. You have to be social. I haven't had a drink since I was 27 years old. I had a glass of champagne. I was on vacation. I had a glass of champagne. I go out. I get invited to parties. I go on cruises. I do lectures, seminars. Corporations hire me all the time. I did 2 this week, as a matter of fact. And I don't have to drink. So you can go out. By the way, you save a ton of money. And you can go out and have a social event and wake up the next day and not feel miserable. And that's the cool part. And if, a lot of people say, Dr. Joe, you gave me my Sundays back. I remember a patient said that the other day. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I never had a Sunday for years. Because every Saturday night, I'd go out drinking with my friends. And then every Sunday, I'd feel awful. He says, I got a whole nother day a week back, and I get to enjoy that day. So you don't have to do certain things to be cool. And in fact, it's cool not to drink now, because then you could be the designated driver. You got to be careful with sugar. You got to avoid processed foods. But sugar, particularly fructose and a lot of grains, wheat is the number one grain you want to avoid, particularly important to help normalize what's called your insulin levels and your leptin levels. Now, leptin is a hormone. It's produced in your stomach, and it's released into your blood and goes up into your brain, into the hypothalamus. And in the hypothalamus part of your brain, it tells you that you're full. When you eat a lot of sugar, it messes with your leptin and your hypothalamus. And so the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want to eat. And so you don't feel full when you eat sugary foods. You can't feel full because it messes with the leptin. We don't want to do that. We want to get it normalized. Ghrelin is a neurotransmitter that's produced in your small intestine. It makes you feel full. Leptin makes you feel full. Ghrelin makes you feel hungry. And if you stop producing leptin and start producing more ghrelin, you get really hungry. And what food does that? Fructose, high fructose corn syrup. Prevents the body from producing proper amounts of leptin and increases your body's production of ghrelin. That's why if you're like me and everyone else on Earth, if you eat sugar, you're going to get hungry and you're going to eat more sugar. And then it messes with your brain's ability to function because your brain has to work on a certain amount of glucose. If you put too much in there, the brain becomes resistant to the glucose. And we're now calling Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, well, specifically Alzheimer's and other dementia, type 3 diabetes. And now we're also finding there's a circulatory component to Alzheimer's and depression. And so if you have good circulation to the brain, it's going to help tremendously. I try to always come up with supplements that I feel my patients and you, the listeners, are going to benefit from. The ones that are the most, I say popular, but the ones that are most necessary, I should say. And we came up with one a while ago, Dr. Joe's Nitric Oxide support. And we take citrulline, which converts into arginine, which converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens up your blood vessels. And it's great if you have circulatory issues, but it's also great for your brain. And it's also great for your romantic issues. Because as we get older, men and women, we don't have the circulation that we used to. And if alcohol is involved, and if you have clogged arteries, which a lot of people do now, circulation is a key here. And nitric oxide is just amazing. And it can even help lower your blood pressure because it opens up your blood vessels. Now, be careful with it. You're messing with very powerful nutrients here. So on my bottle of nitric oxide, it says take 4 a day. You might want to start out by taking 1 or 2. See how you do. If you do well, and don't take it at night, by the way, either. If you take it too close to bedtime, it's going to give you so much energy you may not be able to sleep. A lot of people take it in the morning, and they can get off their coffee. And I want you off your coffee as quickly as possible. So the nitric oxide is really a cool supplement. It's on my website, drjoe.com. So is the Super Greens and the Essential Source, which everybody should be taking anyway. But the nitric oxide can help with circulation. Now, nutrients. Certain nutrients have been known to cause symptoms of depressions when they're lacking. Specific herbs and supplements can help counteract a lot of these symptoms. So if you suggest depression is rooted in nutritional deficiencies and lifestyle factors, that does not detract from the fact that it's a serious problem and it needs to be addressed. Once again, I keep telling you, I want you to do all these things to get well, but I also want you to continue with professional counseling. And if you're on medication, stick with that until we can get your body healthy. And we will talk about it. I know I got to go to break pretty soon. If you're on hold, by the way, keep holding. If you have a question, 844-44-Dr. Joe. I just got a lot of content to cover today. If you don't get through, by the way, you can always call my office, 844-44-Dr. Joe, if you want to make an appointment in the Atlanta area. We have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. Like I said, the supplements, we're going to talk about B-complex. We talked about vitamin D already, nitric oxide, adrenal support, probiotics. We're going to talk about all that because these are going to be keys to getting your digestive system working because your brain works on chemicals. And if you don't have the right chemicals in your brain, the brain can't function normally. And that's the key. You got to give the body the raw materials and the ability to absorb those raw materials in order for your brain to work. Folks, I got to go to break. A lot more to cover. Please hang on. Tell your friends about the show. At the break, call them up, say, listen, tune in. This is a very, very important show. My website, drjoe.com. You can order supplements, send me questions, listen to podcasts. The podcast is for the health of it. If you have podcast services, you can do that there. If you want to make an appointment, drjoe.com or the number 844-44-Dr. Joe rings through to my offices when I'm not on the air. Hey, don't go anywhere. Tell your friends about the show. I'll be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. So glad you're spending time with me today. Talking about a real serious issue. It's been in the news a lot lately, unfortunately, and that's depression. And what happens to the brain, we're going to cover that when it comes to the digestive system, but I've got so much to cover. Let's take a caller here, because I know Matt's been holding for a while here. Let me see. How do I put Matt on the air? Oh, you there, Matt? Let's see. You there, Matt? Nope. Okay, we got a new board here. We're giving it a shot. How about now? You there, Matt? Matt, I cannot find Matt anywhere. Okay, no sign of Matt. Let's see. Okay, Rachel's going to come to my rescue here, Rachel. Help me out. Let's see. Rachel, my hero. I tried that, and it's not working. Okay. Oh, and we lost him. Okay, good. Anyway, Matt's question was, sorry about that, folks. We're putting a new board here at the stadium at the station. It's a little confusing here. But anyway, Matt's question was, what he has a loved one who is suffering from depression. What can they do? And that's what we're going to get into right now, Matt. So I'm sorry about that with the little board problem here. But again, if you have a question, 844-44 Dr. Joe. For some reason we can't get you on the air, I'll read your question for you. And you can always call my office, 844-44 Dr. Joe. And I'm not on the air. Send me questions through the website, drjoe.com. More than happy to answer your questions. All right, so addressing nutrition and what we can do from a nutritional standpoint when it comes to depression. And believe me, I wish I'm not the only person doing this show, a show like this, because this is so important, and I don't ever hear anyone talk about what we're going to talk about now. Certain nutrients we talked about have been known to help and what works. So vitamin D is going to be important, and especially in the summer months, it's a great time to get outside. Because if you're outside with just basically your face, your chest, and your arms exposed, you can get about 20,000 units of vitamin D. Vitamin D is measured in something called international units. It's measured in international units, and you get about 20,000 just by being out in the sun for about 15 minutes. So the key here, and I've done shows on this in the past, they're on my website, drjoe.com, and also For the Health of It if you have a podcast subscription company. And I've done shows on sunlight and sunscreen, how dangerous sunscreen can be. You got to make sure you're using the right kind. Today's not the show for that, but you can get that on my website. And you want to use the right kind, but the best thing is get out of the sun. So I went for a swim the other day, and I was out for about 20 minutes, half hour, and I was done. Because, by the way, the sun can hit you through the water. You're not protected from the sun if you're in the water. And I was done, and I was good. Went later in the day. So just be careful. But vitamin D is so important. Studies have shown that vitamin D deficiency can predispose you to depression, and that depression can respond favorably by simply optimizing your vitamin D levels. So if you don't know what your vitamin D level is, get out in the sun. We have a supplement called Dr. Joe's Vitamin D3 with vitamin K2. K2 is one of those supplements that very few people have in their diet, and you need it because it helps build strong bones. You get it from fermented vegetables, and not a lot of you are eating fermented vegetables. I know that. One such study, people with vitamin D levels below 20 nanograms per milliliter, that's how we measure it, had an 85% increased risk of depression compared with those with 30 nanograms per milliliter. So it's not that much of a difference that can make a big difference. So if you do have depression, you know somebody with depression, get them to their doctor. When you do your blood work, just ask for vitamin D. Omega-3 fatty acids are vital for brain function. These are one of the supplements I take every single day. And in fact, soon, I hope, we're going to have the Dr. Joe's line of omega-3s coming from algae oil. So we have, I'm working with a manufacturer right now to make sure they meet my standards, and hopefully we're going to have that real soon. I take a gram of omega-3s every single day. Now, there's three sources. You can get them from fish oil, which is not my favorite. Fish oil, you run the risk of mercury toxicity. So if you're going to do fish oil, I recommend you do certified mercury-free. Krill oil, I believe, is a better choice than fish because krill oil is in what's called a phospholipid form, and that's how your body utilizes it. It has to be converted to the phospholipid form to be used. So krill oil is a good choice. Still comes from these little shrimp-type characters. Now, I'm a vegan. I don't eat any animal products, so I then go to the algae oil. And I take 1,000 grams, or 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids every single day, and I think you should too. Because people say to me all the time, Dr. Joe, how does your brain work the way it does? At my age, I'm in my middle to late 50s, and people, how does your brain work like that? My brain doesn't work like that. And the key is that I don't have a better brain than you. My brain's probably worse. I've had several concussions over my life. My brain is probably worse than yours, but I just give it the right nutrients that it needs. So algae oils are really important. B vitamins are essential for brain function. Low dietary folate, risk of severe depression, increasing your risk by as much as 300%. So something as simple as a B vitamin helps tremendously in many cases, and it gives you lots of energy. So I have something called Dr. Joe's B Complex, and that's on my website, drjoe.com. It helps metabolic reserve. It builds up the reserve of B vitamins, which you need, protects against dietary deficiencies. It protects against stress-induced nutrient depletion, supports healthy metabolism. And again, if you're under a lot of stress, we're going to talk about stress in a second, chemical, emotional, and physical stresses, and why stress will actually deplete your body a vitamin B, even if you're taking it in, which most people aren't taking it in. So taking Dr. Joe's B complex is something that I take every single day as well. And as a vegan, I don't get B12 a whole lot in my diet because B12 comes when bacteria eat rotten flesh. That's called meat. And so that's why B12 is in the meat. And if you eat the meat, you'll get B12. Really, all it is a decay process of the bacteria eating the rotten, decaying flesh. So you can get B12 as a supplement, which is what I do. And I take it that way, and it's fine. I mean, my body, my B12 levels are great. If you have digestive problems, if you have acid reflux, heartburn, burping, gas, bloating, chances are you're not absorbing your B vitamins either, especially B12, because your B12 needs something called intrinsic factor in order to be absorbed, and your stomach produces intrinsic factor. If you're taking medication with acid reflux, you're not probably absorbing your B12 properly. That's what we're going to talk about after the next break, is how your digestive system is so closely linked to your depression. And almost everyone, in fact, I can probably say every patient I've ever met with an emotional component, anxiety, depression, bipolar, even suicidal, all have an undiagnosed or certainly an untreated digestive problem. Acid reflux, heartburn, burping, gas, bloating. And if you're not breaking down your proteins properly, you're not getting something called amino acids. And the amino acid tryptophan combines with vitamin B6, there's your B vitamins, to create something called 5-HTP, and 5-HTP becomes serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter in your brain that helps with depression. Serotonin becomes melatonin, which helps you sleep. That's why most depressed people aren't sleeping properly. I'm going to cover a lot more of that coming up, because I know it got really complicated there. If you have a question, folks, 844-44-Dr. Joe, my website, drjoe.com. And you can order supplements, Dr. Joe Super Greens, which, by the way, I think everybody should be taking every day of their lives. The B12, the nitric oxide for circulation, the D3 if you're not getting any sunlight. We've got it all laid out for you. It's not hard. It's pretty easy. But the website's there, drjoe.com. Also available on Amazon if you have an Amazon account. Hey, don't go anywhere. Do me a favor. Tell your friends about this very important show. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. So glad you're spending some time with me. Talking today about depression. Causes and things that you can do, and we're having a little trouble with the calls today, so if you didn't get through, that's okay. If you call in, Rachel, our screener, will give me the question. I'll read it on the air for you, so I may not get you on the air, but I can read your question, 844-44-Dr. Joe. And one caller called in, couldn't get through, and he says, his wife is eating right, and what else can you do? So many times there's a physical component. And as a chiropractor, we also look at the neck, because the nerve and blood supply to the brain is from the neck. So if you have neck pain, back pain, headaches, numbness, tingling, muscle weakness, shoulder pain, it most likely is pinched nerves in the body and in the spine, and we put the bones back in place. And a lot of people over the years have reported tremendous results by getting rid of the physical obstruction, the pinched nerves that they have. So that's something you might want to consider, because people always say, I've tried everything. What else is there? Well, there's the stomach. We talked about that earlier. Now we're talking about the neck, pinched nerves, and also blood vessel blockages. Now, somebody called up, too, and said he's on a budget. What do you do? I'm listing a lot of things to do. Well, if you're on a budget, absolute minimum, Dr. Joe's Super Greens, Dr. Joe's Essential Source, the B vitamins, Dr. Joe's B Complex, and if you can, Dr. Joe's Adrenal Support. Those would be the 4 that I would start with right away. And then, of course, you got to stop eating the bad foods. You got to cut out the alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, and artificial sweetener. And good Lord, that's your whole diet. Gave a lecture to a church group earlier this week. And, of course, when I got to the 7 deadly sins, they went, that's a whole diet. I said, I know, everyone says that. But then one lady said, she goes, I'm very strong in my faith, but I'm not strong in my willpower. And I said, well, and I gave a great line. It's a great line from an Emerson, Lake and Palmer song. I know you're old enough to remember Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Got to meet Carl Palmer once. It was really cool. And the line was, you don't have to be well to be wealthy, but you've got to be whole to be holy. And I can't tell you how many pastors and preachers have done sermons after I said that to them based on that line. You don't have to be well to be wealthy, but you've got to be whole to be holy. And that same line holds true when it comes to depression. You have to have the whole body working. You have to have the physical, you have to have the digestion, and you have to have the chemical. And by putting bad chemicals in your body, you're affecting brain function. Sugar being the bad one, high fructose corn syrup being worse, artificial sweetener being worst of all. So you want to stay away from your artificial sweeteners. And one lady stopped me after a workshop I did earlier this week, and she said, I have seizures. And I said, well, the number one side effect of aspartame, artificial sweetener, is headaches And one of the top side effects is seizures. She said, no one's ever told me that before. I said, go look it up. Aspartic acid, an excitotoxin, it gets into the brain, and it can cause the body to go into spasm and seizure. And she said, that's amazing. I drink about 4 or 5 diet drinks a day because I'm trying to maintain my weight. And then I told her that the more diet drinks you drink, the more likelihood you have to gain weight. Tears in her eyes. She was amazed. I'd never heard any of this before. Well, that's why I do this show, to give you information you never heard anymore. If I'm giving you something you've heard, why would you want to listen to the show? Why would you be telling your friends about the show? Why are we number one? We're number one in health and wellness radio broadcast because you made us that way. And I appreciate that. So avoiding the 7 deadly sins, alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, and artificial sweetener is huge. Is it hard? Yeah. Is it worth it? Absolutely. It's real simple. Super Green's an essential source first thing in the morning. I take my other supplements. I take my omega-3s. In the winter, I take my D3. I'll take nitric oxide periodically. I've had many studies done on my blood vessels, and I'm perfectly clean. I have absolutely no clogging of blood vessels whatsoever. I take adrenal support every day because as I get older, my adrenals get weaker, and that helps with energy, my hormone levels, and my inflammation in the body. But the Super Green's the essential source is really the starting point, but the other ones are really important too, and I don't want to downplay the other ones because they're really important. And then I'll have some fruit, maybe a little bit of oatmeal. I don't even cook the oatmeal. I'll just add some coconut milk or almond milk to it, maybe some raisins. Lunch is always a salad, almost always a salad. I shouldn't say always, have a lot of lunch meetings, but always a salad. I'm always vegan. I'm always eating plant-based. So salad is a nice little thing to add to your diet, well, at least once a day. And then dinner varies. And, if you can skip dinner, all the better. It's called intermittent fasting. And if you can skip a dinner 1 or 2 days a week or every day of the week, you'll be amazed how much better you feel. And that'll help with your depression too. But you got to cut out those sugars, folks. The breads, cookies, cakes, donuts, pastas, bagels. You just got to cut them out. Wheat's the number one food you got to cut out. Dairy is the number 2 because those are the ones that cause the most inflammation. Well, I should say aspartame is number 1. That's the number 1 you got to cut out. We talked about the B vitamins, very important. We have Dr. Joe's B complex. I put it in a pill for you. Couldn't make it easier for you. A lot of antioxidants-rich foods. Plenty of fruits and vegetables is associated with lower odds of depression and anxiety, and an effect ascribed to antioxidants that help combat inflammation in your body. Chronic inflammation is thought to be the primary cause of depression. I'm going to say that line again in case you missed it. Chronic inflammation is thought to be one of the primary causes of depression. So when you're depressed and you want those comfort foods, you want those French fries, and you want the bagels and the cookies and the pies and the cakes, understand that if you take those into your body, you will make the depression worse. Why would you want to make the depression worse? Because it feels good. That moment of pleasure you get from eating that apple pie or that brownie or that ice cream is now long-term problems. And then what do? You eat more of it because it gives you a little high. When you start eating the right foods, the fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, taking the supplements, the super greens, the essential source, the B vitamins, the nitric oxides, then you start feeling good too. And then you don't need those things. I'm human too. I get tempted by sugars and brownies and cookies and cakes. So one of the tricks I do, and I got a lot more to talk about here, but I'm going to go on a tangent for a minute, is I never go shopping hungry. Because if you go shopping hungry, I promise you're going to make bad decisions. Now, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. Do it right now before you forget. Go to my website, drjoe.com, sign up for our newsletter. We send out a lot of good information on a newsletter because we want to keep you informed when things like this come out. Maybe you missed a show. We'll send out a message to you on our newsletter or on your email and say, hey, listen, in case you missed Dr. Joe's show, here it is on the podcast. This way you don't miss anything. And we'll tell you what it is. And then you can say, oh, by the way, you know what? Barbara needed to hear that show. John needed to hear that show. Let me forward them this email so that they can see this and they can then listen to it on a podcast. We podcast, got well over 1,000 hours of shows on my website. If you have Google, Stitcher, or what's the other one? iTunes, you can go to, just look up For the Health of It. That's the name of my podcast. And you can listen to the podcast there as well. So do that if you want to make an appointment. We have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge in the Atlanta area. That's our main offices. We'd love to be your doctors. And we can always do phone consultations as well. We do that quite often, too. So, but the number is 844-44-Dr. and that gets you through to us now. If you have a question, you can give us a call, and that'll also get you through to my office if you need to get through. So antioxidant-rich foods, that's the super greens, the essential source, the fruits and vegetables. Try to do something raw at every meal. And the reason I say raw is because raw food has enzymes, and enzymes help with your digestion, which helps break down the proteins into amino acids, which then helps your brain produce the neurotransmitters. That simple little thing that I just gave you will change your life if you start following my advice. Got to go to break, folks. If you have a question, 844-44-Dr. Joe. My website, of course, drjoe.com. Supplements are also available on Amazon, too. So if you want to go to Amazon and order there. But please, folks, do something for your health. It's so inexpensive. When we come back, I'm going to talk about probiotics, the bacteria in your colon, how they affect your digestive system. And we're going to talk a lot more about other things that you can do to help with depression. Folks, the number here, 844-44-Dr. Joe. My website, drjoe.com. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. So glad we're spending a little time together. We're talking today about depression in light of the recent, celebrity suicides. But what about the people that aren't celebrities? What about our veterans? What about people that have issues and then they don't know who to talk to or what to do? That's why we're doing this show, because I want you to have some tools in your toolkit to help yourself and your friends and your family. And for the brain to function normally, it has to have a stimulation, oxygen, and nutrition. So the nervous system has to be working properly from a physical standpoint. As chiropractors, my team of doctors work on getting the nervous system straightened out. Physically, the stomach is pushed up against the diaphragm. If you're having spasms of the diaphragm, you may not be digesting your food or breathing properly. We work on that as well. And then chemically is what you have control over, what you put in your body. And it's so much less expensive to take care of yourself than it is to eat junk food. I'm talking to a friend of mine and recently taught her how to make hummus. I have a recipe in my first book called Eating Right for the Health of It. We have told you how to change your diet. We have a bunch of recipes. And hummus is so simple. A can of organic chickpeas is $1. A little bit of tahini, maybe a tablespoon, salt and pepper if you want to, a little bit of olive oil, some lemon juice, put it in a food processor, whip it up. So instead of spending $4 for a small container of hummus, you now have $1.25 for a big container of hummus. Get some crackers, get some celery or cucumbers, even better, and you can have an entire lunch where you're stuffed for probably $2. So it's so much less expensive to eat right if you know how. Cheaper than a meal that makes you happy. And you're healthy instead of getting sick without all those chemicals in there. So it's a lot easier to eat healthy. It's a lot cheaper to eat healthy. You just have to know how. My first book, Eating Right for the Health of It, tells you how to do that. My second book, Prescription for Extreme Health, is a whole overall guideline, nervous system, digestive system, nutrition. We have a whole chapter for athletes in there. We talk about the digestive issues that we're talking about today, and those are all in that book as well. So great book, by the way. You should get them both. Great gifts. And they're available on my website, drjoe.com, also available on Amazon. So let's talk about some other supplements you might want to consider. But again, I want to get to the cause of your problem, not just treat your symptoms. St. John's wort, it's a medicinal plant, long history of being used for depression, thought to work similarly as antidepressants. It raises the brain chemistries associated with moods like serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. St. John's wort, by the way, W-O-R-T, is actually an Old English word for flower. So it's St. John's flower is what it really means. And it works very well. Now, don't mix these things if you're taking prescription medication. We don't want to have a double dose there, and that can have some adverse effects. So you want to talk to your pharmacist or maybe your doctor about, can I switch over, and let them make that decision for you there. 5-HTP, that's something that people take sometimes because 5-HTP is along the line. 5-HTP becomes serotonin, serotonin becomes melatonin, but 5-HTP comes from your digestive system breaking proteins into amino acids. Amino acid tryptophan combines with vitamin B6, which is why I recommend Dr. Joe's B complex for energy and nerve function and health overall, but today it's specifically for depression. Sometimes the skull doesn't work properly. When you breathe, your skull actually expands and contracts. And if you ever had a concussion, most of us have at some point in our lives, the skull may not be moving properly. So we got to get in there and start moving the bones around. And so cranial adjusting or cranial manipulation is something all my doctors do at my offices. I trained them, and a lot of them did training on their own as well. And so that's important too, that if, some people go to regular chiropractic care, and that's great, but sometimes they need a little extra stuff. I want to talk about probiotics. Your mental health is closely linked to your gut. Number of studies confirm chronic inflammation, especially in the gastrointestinal tract, can play a critical role in developing depression. Now, in fact, researchers have suggested depression may be a neuropsychiatric manifestation of a chronic inflammatory syndrome. How's that for a fancy word? What that means is you're eating junk food. It causes an inflammatory reaction in your bowels. That inflammation becomes systemic, which means it goes through your whole body, and that can be causing depression. So your gut really is your second brain. It's created from the identical tissue as your brain when you were in mommy's belly. When the sperm and the egg came together, the first thing to form is the brain and the spinal cord. And then the spinal cord looks like a little tadpole, grows off these little limbs, these little branches, and those little branches are called your spinal nerves. And as chiropractors, if a bone in the spine moves out of place, it'll pinch those spinal nerves, and we want to put those bones back in place, taking the pressure off the nerves. And then the same cells that form the brain form the digestive system. And so you got to understand, it's essentially the same thing, it's just in a different part of the body. It's important to understand your bacteria in your gut need to be active, and they're an integral part of serotonin regulation and actually produce more serotonin than your brain. And in your body, in the serotonin, 95% of the serotonin, the chemical in your brain that helps with depression, is not used by your brain, it's used by your gut. So if you have a lack of serotonin and the gut wants 95% and the brain wants 5%, you're going to suffer all the way around. So it's really important you fix that. So optimizing the bacteria in your colon is the key to the equation to optimizing your serotonin. The gut flora, or the gut bacteria, play a role in GABA regulation. GABA is a neurotransmitter that helps suppress pain. And as a pain expert, as a chiropractor and a pain expert, a lot of patients come into us with pain, but we want to fix their digestive system so that you can break glutamine becomes GABA. If you're not breaking your proteins into glutamine, glutamine becomes the GABA. You may not be producing enough GABA, so you can't suppress your pain. And if you have a stress-induced hormone called cortisol, that can affect anxiety, depression as well. So if you're under stress, whether chemical, physical, or emotional stress, the body may be producing too much cortisol, which can then cause more inflammation, which can then affect the anxiety and depression. So we can do cortisol testing. We test at our office, by the way. We can test your cortisol levels at our office, and we can say, okay, these are the things that we need to do to help lower the cortisol issues. You also want to look at yeast overgrowth. A lot of people have yeast overgrowth. We can test our office for that. We can do a little blood work for that. Food allergy testing. We can test for that in our office. We can do hormone testing, thyroid, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. That's a saliva test, and we can do that in our office. We do it all the time. Food and environmental sensitivities. We can do that in our office. Toxic metals. We can do a hair analysis. We do that in our office. So we can do the work, and we can also test you for these things to find out exactly where it is and then exactly what we need to do to help you. But the gut bacteria are huge, and if you're eating a lot of sugars and fructose, things like grains, corn, wheat, those are the two big ones you want to cut out, that can be causing problems as well. The sugar can feed the yeast and kill off the good bacteria. And now you got other problems. So we have something called Dr. Joe's Optimal Probiotic. It's good bacteria and helps maintain the gastrointestinal balance in your gut. It increases secretory IgA. IgA is one of the chemicals that's released in your body to help with inflammation. And it helps with bowel regularity. You want to make sure your bowels are moving. If your bowels are not moving at least once a day, preferably twice a day, if your bowels aren't moving, you could have a spasm in your colon called the ileocecal valve. We have something called Dr. Joe's Intestinal Cleanser, which works great to help get the bowels jump-started. I don't want you taking that long-term. These other products, we're talking long-term. This is short-term. Just kind of jump-start the bowels and get everything moving again. Because we want to get this junk out of your system the best we possibly can. Folks, going to have to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your cholesterol levels. And are your cholesterol levels too low? You never heard somebody say that. Too low cholesterol levels can lead to some real serious problems. And then we're going to talk about other things, exercise, sleep, your cell phone. Could your cell phone be causing depression? The answer is absolutely, positively yes. Phone number here is 844-44-Dr. Joe. My website to order supplements, books, send me questions, drjoe.com. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here. Glad you could spend a little time with us today. This is our last segment, so if you didn't get through because we had a little problems with our phone, give us a call at the office, 844-44-Dr. Joe. Ring through to my office when I'm not on the air. If you want to make an appointment to come see us, 844-44-Dr. Joe. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. We'd love to be your doctor. We want to work on your nervous system, pain, neck pain, back pain. Car accidents. I've never, ever in my entire career ever seen a car accident where the car was damaged, but the occupants weren't. So if you're in a car accident, I don't care what the insurance company tells you, oh, it was only $500 worth of damage, you weren't hurt. No. You were hurt because your body was locked in. The car absorbed some of the shock, and your neck absorbs the rest. So the biggest problem I see with patients, long-term injuries, is they had an injury a long time ago, and they never got it fixed. And then they say, why didn't I do this sooner? So don't hesitate. If you know anyone who's ever been in a car accident, get them in to see us. Even if it was their fault. Doesn't matter if it's your fault or not, you're still hurt. And you need to get that fixed. So 844-44 Dr. Joe will get you through to us. So I want to talk about cholesterol for a second. We're talking about depression today. And low cholesterol has been linked to dramatically increasing the rates of suicide as well as aggressiveness toward others. So most people talk about high cholesterol. Nobody talks about low cholesterol. Increased expression of violence towards self and others may be due to the fact that low membrane cholesterol decreases the number of serotonin receptors in the brain. If you don't have enough cholesterol, your brain is not receiving or utilizing the serotonin that you have, and we are approximately 30% cholesterol by weight, your brain. So if you're taking cholesterol medications and you're starting to get depressed, your cholesterol might be too low. Low serum cholesterol concentrations may contribute to decreasing brain serotonin, which not only contributes to suicidal-associated depression, but prevents the suppression of aggressive behavior and violence toward others. Again, you get new stuff on this show, folks. That's what this show's all about, giving you information you're not going to get anywhere else. Dealing with stress is important. There's chemical, physical, and emotional stress. The chemical stress is what we talk about from a chemical standpoint. Food, drugs, alcohol, environmental toxins, eating the 7 deadly sins of nutrition every day, the alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, and artificial sweetener. Not getting the proper nutrition. At least everybody, in most cases, I'm going to say everybody with an asterisk there, should be taking Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. There is a lot of K1, vitamin K1 in there. So if you are on blood thinners, tell your doctor, listen, I'm going to start taking Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source every day. Monitor my blood and see how we do. We may have to alter the medication because of it. But Super Greens and Essential Source just rock. And I use coconut milk or almond milk. If you drink dairy, I wish you wouldn't. But if you do, make sure it's organic. You can mix it with regular milk. You know, if you want to sweeten it up, you shouldn't. You could always add a frozen banana in there or some frozen berries and whip it up in a food processor or a blender. But it rocks. I'm telling you, once you start taking this stuff, and it's so popular because it works and it's relatively inexpensive. 17 different types of fruits and vegetables, prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and a complete multivitamin for about $1.10 a day. And then you add the Super Greens to it, about another $1. So maybe $2.50 a day. Come on, folks, you can afford that. One cheap cup of coffee, and this will solve that problem too. Physical pain, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, numbness, tingling, muscle weakness. This is very stressful to the body, and that causes an inflammatory reaction. And if it's severe enough, pain can be very depressing. I understand that. Broke my back twice. I'm not too smart, folks. A disc degeneration, arthritis, which is the same thing, many times can cause pain. You want to get that fixed. Why suffer needlessly? And that's why as chiropractors, my team of doctors are really good at helping people with back pain. And so many, medical schools, chiropractic schools refer to us because they say, Doc, we don't know what else to do. What can you guys do for us? So we love the opportunity to be your doctors. So pain is an issue that can lead to depression. Of course, medication can lead to depression. Even blood pressure medication can lead to depression. Steroids, oh gosh, steroids, really big when it comes to depression. So try to get to the cause of your problem so hopefully you don't have to take the medication. And then add the good nutrients. Add a salad at least once a day. See what happens. I always tell people, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So what? I'm wrong. Am I the first guy to ever lie to you? But I'm not wrong. And then you start getting healthy and you alkalize your system because when there's inflammation, there's always a high acid component. And things like Super Greens, which are, they don't taste as good as the Essential Source. That's why I mix a scoop of each together. And then you get the B vitamins in there. And then you start getting nitric oxide for circulation. You get the adrenals that produce anti-inflammatories. It's pretty cool stuff, folks. Sleep and depression. Pretty intimately. Oh, by the way, you can get those supplements on my website, drjoe.com. Are also available on Amazon if you want to get them there too. But sleep and depression, very closely linked. But we talked about that connection. That if your stomach isn't producing the serotonin, the tryptophan to create the 5-HTP, to create the serotonin, to create the melatonin, there's going to be a sleep issue. So ideally, 8 hours of sleep a night is good, but many times people that have sleep issues have digestive issues. Think about it. If you have a sleep issue, is it due to pain? Could be a chiropractic issue. Is it do you have acid reflux, heartburn, burping, gas, bloating? Do you have to sleep sitting up? A lot of people do. It's the stomach pushing up against the diaphragm. Physically, we may have to massage or pull the stomach down away from the diaphragm. How often do we do it? In my offices, about once every 10 to 15 minutes. That's how common this is. I've had days where I've had 6, 8, 10 new patients. All of them, along with their other issues, have a digestive problem. That's how common it is. So you're not alone in the world, believe me. And I had it too for years. I had rapid heart rate. I had anxiety. And when I finally got my stomach fixed, all those things went away. And your brain works better too. You got to get the cell phones out of your room. When you're sleeping, if you do have them in your room, put it on the other side of the room. Studies have linked excessive exposure to electromagnetic frequencies to an increase in both depression and suicide. Yeah, folks, cell phone, the radiation, the electromagnetic frequency can be causing problems. Power lines and high voltage cables appear to be particularly troublesome. Addiction, or to get your high engagement with your mobility devices, you have to get in there and contact everybody, also triggered depression and anxiety, according to researchers from the University of Illinois. So if you have to be posting constantly, if you have to be checking your phone constantly, that can be a sign. And to take a technology break might be something important. Or limit yourself. I can only check my phone once every hour. Your phone will ring. Don't worry. If somebody calls you, you'll hear it ringing. But maybe put it down. Leave it at home. Leave it in your car. Go for a hike. Get outside and see what happens. So I feel this is another component of why depression is skyrocketing. Do a Wi-Fi disconnect. I turn off my Wi-Fi router at night. I have a timer on mine. And in fact, I just got a new one, and from my IT guy says I'll be able to program it. And so I had a timer. And so shut it off if you can. Folks, that's the end of the show. If you missed it, it's going to be on my website, drjoe.com. Also available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play under For the Health of It. If you have questions, if you want to make an appointment, 844-44-DR-JOE or drjoe.com if you want to order supplements, listen to archive radio shows, read my articles, drjoe.com, also available on Amazon. Hey, folks, if I don't say it enough, thank you so much for telling your friends about the show and making us number one. Catch you next time. Number one.